Bill, how much time do we have set aside for this?
Half hour.
All right. Bill, if you need to go, I'm sorry, Alan, if you need to go a little bit longer, I can shave off 15 minutes of mine. So see if you can finish between 30 and 45, okay?
Will do, sir. Not
we
a
are
problem.
recording. You have the con. Let me know when you want to slide.
Oh, okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. I wanted to it being Sunday, I wanted to open up with an invocation, and if you'll allow me to do this, and then we'll start right into our lesson. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. I pray a blessing upon everybody within hearing, Lord God, that you would bless them and bless theirs, Lord God. Bless this time we have together and this teaching to apply it to our lives. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. And having said that, sir, we'll have our first slide. Our CBI is on temperance. And can somebody out there tell me what temperance is? Okay, Cadet Lieutenant Mason. And
it is self-restraint, sir.
Self-restraint, very good. Self-control. Temperance is the habit of moderating our impulses and emotions so we can make wise choices, behave in ways that benefit ourselves and others, and set ourselves up to achieve meaningful life goals. It's one of the strongest ways to stand against negative peer pressure. If we're able to control ourselves, um, then we can stand up to negative peer pressure. And of course, this lesson applies to cadets. It helps cadets understand what temperance looks like, and gives tools for how to make it a lifelong habit. Because I know from personal experience, if you don't have self control, if you can't control yourself, somebody else will. Okay, let tell you that again. If you don't have self control, somebody else will. Okay, so you need to apply it to yourself and be able to control your uh, emotions, impulses, and how you act, so you can make wise decisions and good behaviors. Okay. Um, Now, uh, sir, if you could start the video. Um, okay. Yeah, here we go. Now, we're in this lesson, we're gonna study about what it looks like and some practical ways we can develop it in our lives. We're gonna see a video here, clip about a guy named Phineas Gage, um, and what happened to him. Um, and this is a famous case about him. Would you start it, sir? All right. Thank you, sir, for that. Okay. Now we're going to have a, a short discussion time. Just chime in, um, and and we'll discuss this. Okay. Now we all have conflicts and other impulses and emotions, and it makes us, want to do things that we know we shouldn't. Okay, and so um, how do our strong emotions affect us, and what changes do you notice in your body and in your thinking when you're afraid, excited, or happy? Because when the we get excited like that, our brain releases dopamine, and I know I get an adrenaline rush um, when I'm flying along with somebody or I'm in a certain situation. I used to drive an ambulance, and I would tell them that I'm not speeding. I'm just flying real low, and and um, and I would get that rush that when I was driving the ambulance, because I had somebody else's life in my hands. I had to get them there alive to the hospital, and also in a situation where uh, I was delivering a baby, and and I had different emotions from for delivering somebody else's baby versus mine. I knew what to do when I was delivering somebody else's baby, but when it came time for cadet Hope Linder to be born, I I I was acting clueless and had to be directed, and I just watched in amazement. Uh, so I'm opening it up for remarks and responses. Any takers out there?
Yes, sir. I would certainly say that when you're, I had this happen to me before. So there was something like we were going to go somewhere, and it was very interesting, but our parents told us like the day before. But that day we had to work on school until we were able to do that. And so, I didn't get much school done because of the anticipation of going to do that fun thing. I think that was just my mind focusing on the thing. And I couldn't really focus on my school. I didn't get anything really done that day, which was a shame because I was so focused on what was going to happen, not what I had to do right now.
It, that's a good example. Thank you for sharing that with us. Anybody else? Okay. How does your behavior change when they're especially strong? Like, um, can anybody name a time when your emotions were really strong and it affected your behavior?
Yes, sir. I remember the time when my 1-year-old cat went missing, and since we live out in the country, we had no idea what happened to her. Thankfully, she came back, but during that time, I had to ask my writing teacher for an extension because I knew I was not thinking clearly, and thankfully, I got the extension.
Very good. Very good. Yes. Um, I I can I can remember conflicts and arguments with my brother and sisters, um, and my dad had to settle it with with a spanking. Yeah, and we let our emotions get ahead of us, um, and we react. That's why a lot of times little children they they do what they do. They and strike out. They don't even think about it until it happens. Somebody steals their toy, and then they turn around and they smack them, or they get into a fight or argument. From being a teacher, a public school teacher, um, yeah, that happened every day, and so because the hormones are running wild, and so um,
I have an example,
let's
sir.
see.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I do marksmanship, which is precision shooting, and there you really have to keep your emotions in check. So it's kind of something I've learned to do to just kind of block things out, which sounds really unhealthy, but for my sport, it's necessary. So, say one day last
We're
year, something happened at school and I was really upset. And then I went to marksmanship and I was shooting probably the worst I've ever shot. And my teacher, my coach, comes up to me and tells me that I need to back away. I need to take a step back because I was letting my emotions control my shooting. I wasn't
yeah,
channeling my emotions effectively. And I was just kind of letting them control everything that I was doing. So it's also the same with sports, like any other
very
sport.
very good. We're uh at the end of the lesson. There was I'm kind of jumping ahead, spoiler alert, but this is a perfect example of because one, well, you know the key to shooting is your breathing. Um, when I was in high school, I was in Marine ROTC, and I was um, I was captain of our shooting team. We shot 22 rifles, and our instructor, he um, um, Marines sergeant major, and the first thing he taught us um, was how to breathe. And there's a method called box breathing, and that Navy SEALs use. And I've met several Navy SEALs, and they use this technique um, to breathe in and out and to control your breathing, which um, which is essential to to shooting, and also to it also to uh, control your emotions, and to control yourself, so that everything's in check, and despite whatever is going on around you, you can focus and um and keep your head about you. That's a perfect example of that. And when you and so when I came back and I was going through rehabilitation um for traumatic injury, I had uh, I had to learn how to breathe all over again. because I had nerve damage, and I would hyperventilate. I'd do all these things, and and I had to learn. You take it for granted, but I had to learn how to breathe all over again, and because there was times I'd get so scared I'd literally stop breathing, and and then I'd panic, and um so you just take a step back, and when a kid in my class would be getting on my nerves, I would just start counting to myself, and just breathe in, out, and control my breathing. And when my students in my lab saw me start doing that, um, they they got quiet, and they knew um, um, better than, because if they didn't, something was going to happen. And um, very good. I'm glad you put that in there, because we were going to cover that and talk about that later. Moving on now. Um, um, who do you think's most aware of the changes in your personality, yourself or those around you?
I would
Those
say
around you.
those around you, especially your family members, such as parents.
I agree.
I would say those around you.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think they're the first to see any changes that happen, and you're defined by those who are around you. The president, he may not be the smartest person in the country, but he's surrounded by advisors who are supposed to be the best, and and they're supposed to make him look good by giving him the best advice. When I um, um, for 2 weeks, I got to work at the White House, and carry messages. I was a glorified messenger boy, and I found that out, that are surrounded by smart people, and so you are defined by the people you hang out with and have around you. Um, so uh, leading into my next one, how are your emotions and impulses affected by the people who are around you?
We have heard this a lot before, which is emotions are contagious, attitudes are contagious. And I do have a good example, which is sometimes whenever either me or my mom gets upset, we get the other one upset. And so it spirals quickly out of control unless if we take a step back, take a breather, and then try and resume what we were originally talking about before our emotions got better of us.
It's pretty much the same way with my mom and I, and then also my best friend and I kind of do the same thing. So we all really affect each other.
I agree. That's both are great um, examples. That's good. That's good. Anybody else before we move on? Okay. Well, we learned from the video that the prefrontal cortex helps us manage our behavior and handle social situations, and at certain times in our lives, our prefrontal cortex will uh, be weaker than the limbic system. Okay, and if I count on my own brain, how can I help manage other people's behavior if I can't control my own? And being aware of that, uh, we need to, uh, it, like I said in the beginning, if we don't have if we can't control ourselves, somebody else will. Um, and um, the jails and prisons are full of people like that, and so are the cemeteries. And so, um, uh, before we make any decisions, we should also always consider our values. Okay, and for this, we must know exactly what our values are. Okay, um, and that's why CAP, we have our core values, and we lean on those core values um, to build our character, and our character is what defines us. Okay, um, uh, and I wanted to say uh, which personal values uh, guide your decisions uh, um, based on um, the, the core values. How would they? Which ones would tie into this?
Respect is a good one.
Respect, good.
I think integrity.
Yes. Uh, I was thinking of integrity myself. Um,
Excellence as well.
excellence, good. We could go right down through the list and name every one of the core values that is um, that is affected and impacted by this, and guides our decisions because talent may get you there, but it's character that'll keep you there, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. Um, and because we have to have goals to get us there. If you shoot for nothing, you'll hit nothing every time. And um, and so we just like shooting, uh, you need a target, okay, and you need goals, short term goals, long term goals, to get there. And in well, in our in our thinking, we have to. Um, I taught my students because I was taught this way. That's a cinch by the inch, but it's hard by the yard. So take it. And how do you eat an elephant? Anybody?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time, sir.
One bite at a time. And a wise man once said that how do you take uh how do you walk 1,000 miles?
One step at a
Step at
time.
a time. Very good, very good. Unless you're in an F-16, I mean, oh, then so um So we need to make our goals, um, day-to-day decisions to help us attain those goals. Um, and one of those, I listen. That has anybody heard our have his book, Admiral William Raven's uh, his his speech, uh, "Make Your Bed."
Yes, sir.
I've
Yes,
heard about
love
it,
it.
sir.
Sir.
As one of the most inspirational speeches I've ever heard, and I've bought that book and and I give them away, and that helped me. You just start off your day, um, make your bed. If you can't do anything else, make your bed, and then start from there. And one little decisions at a time. Um, and let's see. And so anyway, um, how do we avoid making a bad decision? Okay, and Lord help, we I know I've made my share of them. Okay, um, like the saying, nothing good happens away from home after 10 p.m. Which situations make it harder for you to make responsible decisions? And so, um, are there, it, if you put yourself in a situation, and sometimes it's not of your own. For instance, if you're a first responder, if you're in the military, um, uh, you're not responsible for how you're there to respond to what's going on. You're following your orders there, but in regular life, um, what kind of situations make it harder for you to make good decisions?
Especially when you're like stressed out or mad about something or angry.
Yep. Yeah.
We have a comment of peer pressure, and I would say drugs and alcohol definitely don't help you make good decisions. Over.
Thank you, sir. That's where that was going. Drugs and alcohol are big influencers, and they impair your decision making. And I know from my own experience, um, I got pulled over one time, and uh, I'm diabetic, and the cop said, "Well, you were swerving in your lane, and I pulled you over." And when he was talking to me, and I actually breathalyzer, I wasn't, I hadn't had any alcohol, but my blood sugar was so high that um, that I had a oh, what's it there's another kind of my keto um, balance when I breathed into there was off the scale, that my blood uh, alcohol level from having I just come from being a minister. I just come from a wedding and ate too much cake, and my blood sugar was so high, I was actually um, on the verge of being drunk and impaired driving. And the cop pulled me over and had me call my wife. And my wife came and got me. Um, Fortunately, I didn't get a ticket or anything, but um, that's um, that's where I first became aware that I could actually my blood alcohol was affected by how much sugar I had taken in. Okay, moving on. Unless there's some comments about that, because drugs and alcohol do affect our thinking and our emotions. Because some alcohol is a depressant. Um, there are um, um, drugs that get us up and get us down, and when we mix them, also um, there's the interactions there that affect our systems. Um, Sir, how are we doing with time?
If you could wrap it up in the next 5 to 8 minutes, you got time, sir.
Super. I just need. I'm almost done here. I just need about 5 minutes. So. Um, One of the things that we can do to be more careful about our decisions and how we control them is we need to be accountable. That's where having a wingman comes in. If you are accountable to somebody and you got to explain to somebody why you do what you do, um, like a coach, a confessor, a chaplain, um, or your parents, or having your wingman there uh, for accountability. Um, that that helps you to. I know I certainly do. Um, that I'm accountable. I make myself accountable. Not and so so that I stay on track. If I don't, I'll be lost out there in the weeds. Okay, and usually I have um, Cadet Lieutenant um, Mason, Harlan Mason, from my unit. She does the small group facilitation. And I know when I run over my time, because she has her 10 minutes in here, and I get the look, I get the stare, or, if she'll do something to let me know, and she holds me accountable for um, uh, keeping me in check, because I'll run down a rabbit hole. Okay. Now, um, decisions made in the heat of the moment uh, are often poor decisions. How can we protect ourselves by giving the limbic system a chance to relax? Because when you're on the spot and you need technique to calm you down. Uh, and there's a way of saying you don't make um, life changing decisions on the spur of a moment. Okay, um, and that certainly holds true. Senior members or anybody out there, You wanna chime in on that and about making poor decisions in the heat of the moment?
I would like to plead the Fifth Amendment.
Yes, sir.
The best examples I've heard, that's why God gave us like 52 teeth, so you could bite your tongue. And I've rarely regretted not saying the first thing that crossed my mind. I have definitely regretted actually saying it. And the analogy is your words are like toothpaste. You can get them out. I can share one story that most folks have heard. My wife and I, it was our first or second year of marriage, and we were having an intense conversation. And without thinking, I looked at my wife and I did the knife hand thing, and I said, "Look, woman." And that's when I caught myself, because you think Lieutenant Mason has a death stare. I think they teach this in junior high for girls, how to do the magnum. Let's just say we had it scared me because she actually got quiet. And correct me if I'm wrong, I have never used that "look, woman" uh, verbiage with my wife ever again. And here we are, still married, and I'm still alive. Over.
Yes, and if you ever hear an older Southern woman say, "Bless your heart," you just better stop right there. Well, bless your heart, and then you get the stare. Um, but yes, um, we've all done in impulsive things like that, and have had to eat our words or apologize, backtrack, and because um, yeah, crow is a whole lot uh, easier to eat with salt than um, that's a euphemism. Now, suppose someone is asking you to make a choice when you're under emotional stress. What can you say to buy you some time? Postpone that decision so that you can really think about it.
Hey, I've got an example. This isn't like a huge moral quandary or anything, but my husband's a pastor. And so in the churches we've served in, we're all the time having kids ask, "Hey, my school is selling wrapping paper or popcorn or cookies." Okay. And in larger churches, that can be quite an investment if we say yes to everyone. So early on, we made the decision that when he was asked, he would say, "You need to go talk to Miss Rachel, go talk to Miss Rachel and see that way only the really determined ones would come and ask." And then it would be the first person who asked, and it's probably a yes, and the rest of them no. But we had worked out this system that he would not impulsively say yes to all the sellers who would then come ask me, and I would say yes to all the sellers. So, put a system in place kind of where you can use that accountability partner or your wingman to help you make good decisions.
So in other words, if someone asks you and you're the dad, you can say, "Go ask your mom." Over.
Well, one of us has to, the buck stops here, and I've had them play one off against the other, and then when it comes back to me, I'm usually the bad guy, because I'll say, "Well, have you done your homework? Have you done this? Have you?" And if they've checked all the boxes, we're good to go. If they haven't, then I'm off the hook. Well, and the decision's made for me. But um, also I have to do my homework because, like for instance, my my uncle, he's a used car salesman, one of the best. You go to a family reunion, and within 5 to 10 minutes, he's trying to sell you a car or something. And, and, um, and so, or going on a family trip, they're always trying to tell you, trying to sell you something or incentive. And I sit there with my wife and I said, we're going to practice saying no, 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 no. and, and, so, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But um, we don't need everything that they're selling out there. And the same things true with our um, emotional needs. We have to sort out the good from the bad, the and make priorities in spiritual situations, just like in the medical field. We call it spiritual triage. Just like in the hospital when I was a medic, we had to do triage and had to prioritize the injuries of the patients that came in. And in spiritual triage, I do the same thing. Do what does that person really need? If they are depressed or they're over there lonely or they're crying, um, who do I need to see first? Which one is? If I see a person's having a bad day, um, uh, do I say something to them, or uh, if I am feeling a certain way, if I am mad over something, I got to think about it. Am I really like? Could I really have done something about that situation, or am I just responding to what I just heard?
Hey, Chaplain
So,
Linder, I
uh,
apologize. This is
yep.
really good. Can we wrap it up in like 2 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
The last thing I would say here is that um, look up the box breathing. That's really neat, from Navy SEAL Mark Devine on YouTube. And then down here, planning to succeed again, make a plan. If you've got big decisions to make, don't make them hasty. Um, and then down here, um, uh, about temperance and self-control. Practice your calming techniques, especially somebody's getting on your last nerve. Um, Tie a knot, hang on, and breathe. Okay, and and also God's there. Pray. Okay, and that's from my um, um, perspective, that uh, you can count on Him. Um, Sir, that's all I have. Bless y'all. Y'all have a great day. I enjoyed being at encampment with you, and God bless everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Chaplain Linder. So the big thing there is we transition. If you need to stand up, if you need to quick use the bathroom, go for it. We're going to roll on though, and I'll be done by 10:35, excuse me. The big thing though is takeaway is habit. So you want to get in the habit of making the small decisions. That's fine, Cadet Mercer. Make the small decisions. It's almost like chair flying. You know, you think about what you're going to do before it happens. And Captain Nason, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't wait for the weapons malfunction to figure out what you were going to do. Like you practiced it time and time again, so that when the weapon malfunctioned in the heat of combat, it was almost automatic response. You did it involuntarily without thinking. Am I wrong?
No, it was instinctive. I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah, because you practiced it and you trained it so much, because it literally could be life and death. And then Chaplain Linder said something that really kind of stuck. What two places are filled with people who didn't practice temperance? Did you guys catch that?
I
Our
did.
jails. Go ahead, say it.
I did. It's our jails and our cemeteries.
Oof.
Word.
Oof.
Yes.
And so that whole temperance thing is not just for the cadets. It's for all of us because we still need to learn. And if a guy who had half his prefrontal cortex blown out by a big steel rod can learn it through habit, then we can too. All right, we're going to transition into one of my favorite topics, military air power, not just for cadets. Can y'all see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
do that?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
That's
Okay.
crazy.
I
Yes, sir.
cannot see the chat or hands raised. So if somebody does, please let me know. Can anybody tell me, and just kind of shout it out, what kind of airplane is this?
C-130.
What kind of C-130?
The HC-130.
So it turns out this one's not the HC. This one looks like an H or a Papa model. It's got the 4-blade. If y'all can see my cursor right here, what are these 4 little bottles on the back side of the aircraft? Anybody know?
They're rockets,
Are those
sir.
Jetpacks.
Yeah, they're called JATO, jet assisted takeoffs, or the little one-time light them. There's 4 on each side. It's a way to get out of jail quickly because it's really cool. We need to do a lesson on the atmosphere at the poles because when you take off at sea level, I was talking to a flight nurse that did 3 months down there. She said because of the way the Earth rotates and you're at the bottom of the ball, you take off at sea level and you climb to 1,000 feet and you're actually at 7 to 8,000 feet. Pressure density. So it's really kind of weird. And one of the things that makes the C-130, so yes, he's got skis. So does anybody know, how does this thing taxi around and stop when he's on a big 3 pairs of skis? Anybody know?
Does he use his propellers?
Yes, this is one of the few aircraft they can rotate the pitch of the propellers to go forward and go backwards, right? So right here, what we have is a C-130 landing at the South Pole. We're going to talk about air power. And the air power we want to use is the one that General Billy Mitchell gave us, which is it's very simple. Air power is the ability to do something in the air. The people of Ukraine and Russia are learning real quickly. It's very important to be the one who has the ability to do things in the air because you can see things, you can reach out and touch things. And if your enemy can deny you the ability to do things in the air, you're going to find out real quick. Life's going to be pretty hard. That something, again, could be intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance. It could be bombing. It could be moving people and stuff. It can be doing combat search and rescue, anything. And if you don't have access to that air, you're going to be in the hurt locker. Air power is very unique, right? Because anybody know what time frame this picture's from? Trench warfare?
World War
World
One.
War One.
Is this remembered as a fun time? And this is when we made a lot of innovation in warfare?
No, sir.
No. So this was a clash of dogma and technology. So 18th century, 19th century armies were used to large formations, and they would line up and they would maneuver. The thing they didn't account for, though, World War I, you had machine guns, you had all these great earthworks. They fought for months and months over. We're talking meters, football fields. They would gain it, they would lose it. No Man's Land was called No Man's Land because it was a bloodbath. And life, even if you weren't getting shot up, yep. And the problem was they had the liquid cooled machine guns, and so you would blow the whistle, everyone would charge, and everyone would get mowed down because they had more precise and just more volume of bullets. And then going over the top was pretty much futile. And they used the big, some of the biggest artillery ever made. They used mustard gas. They used all this stuff. And remember that in the 1915 or 1919, the airplane was around, balloons were around, and they mostly used them to spot artillery, to watch what the other side was doing. But the pilots would look down and they would just see the horror, the scorched earth, the concertina wire. And just a really, really bad way to fight. So air power, being unique, gave you the ability to overfly this kind of stuff. And they had some very rudimentary bombs, not quite as rudimentary as the ones Cap dropped in World War II. But they could see what the other side was doing and actually attack them. And that's why the end, the pilots as they flew by, it went from cordial waves, a gentleman's game, to then harsh language, some hand gestures. Then they used pistols and rifles, and then they went to machine guns to try to shoot down the other one because they realized the advantage of having control of the air was. Okay, so let's look at some of the special things about Airpower. Anybody ever done this before? You ever hung from Doc? Is that a 53? Or is that a 3? It's like the Navy version.
That there is a MH-53.
MH-53. Okay.
Stabo.
You ever had the pleasure of doing this? Flying through the
Yeah,
sky?
sometimes willingly and sometimes by mistake.
Sounds good. All right, so real quick, just popcorn them out. What are some unique things? What are some special things about Airpower? Shout them out.
There's no borders.
No borders, okay. And actually, I see Machado. That was you're right. The Gatling gun technically was a machine gun, but it wasn't as cooled. I would say they still had a limited stick. So you're right. Gatling guns were used in the Civil War, but they weren't nearly as mobile. All right. So real quick, you got no borders. What are some other unique special things about Airpower?
Speed, sir.
Speed. That's right. Even the airplanes of World War I, that could go 50, 60 knots. They weren't worried about terrain. They weren't worried about roads. They weren't worried about a little bit about weather, but they didn't get stuck in the mud. Okay. What else?
Vision, you can see a lot more from up in the air.
Say again?
You can see a lot more from up in the air. Vision.
We're going to call that perspective. Okay. What else? You guys are getting most of them.
Firepower, sir.
Firepower. Yeah, I'll give you that. Okay. Not always, but yes.
3 dimensions.
What do you mean?
On a battlefield, on the ground, there's only 2. What's all around you, because it's in the plane. You also have to think about what's up and down.
Okay. So you're playing 4D chess against someone who's playing 2D chess. Okay, got it. Give me one more.
Could you repeat the question?
The question is, what's special about Airpower?
I would say that.
Go ahead.
I would say that you can drop people off behind enemy lines, and you don't have to go past people on the ground. You can just fly over them.
All right, we're going to call that range, and hold that thought. Hold that thought. Very, very good. All right, so one of the first things is perspective, right? So if anybody see this guy do his high altitude jump, the Red Bull dude? Anybody watch this?
Yes, sir. It's very cool.
It was very cool. Who, given the opportunity, would do this? I know I would. Can you imagine being in your spacesuit?
There is not enough money in this world that you could pay me to make me do this.
Are you? But think about, you're in your spacesuit and you see that right there. Like you see, and if y'all remember the video, there was a video when y'all look at actually Cadet Mercer, when you did your space thing, and the guy called out the Earth. Look on the top. See that little bitty thin blue line? Remember he talked about that. What is that again?
The Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah, the atmosphere. Yeah, so you have the ground, you have the space, that little bitty blue aura. Yes, look at us working together, right? But Airpower allows the ability for perspective. And I can tell you as an A-10 pilot, there's a couple of times I was doing a close air support exercise out in Vegas, and I was flying around, and I saw these 3 armored vehicles sneaking through a backwood road, and I called the friendly guys, and I said, hey, do y'all have any guys over here? And they were like, nope. And when we got closer, it turns out they were enemy trying to sneak behind our friendly forces. So we were able to schwack them and protect their guys kind of going there. But even in World War II and before, balloons were to get that higher perspective, to see over the enemy lines, to see farther, to do some artillery spotting, and as well as trying to see what the enemy was doing. That's reconnaissance. And by the way, anybody know the name of this guy? Anybody know his name?
Felix something, sir.
Very close, very good. And I'll be honest, I only knew it because it's on my notes. Felix Baumgartner. I would do this in a heartbeat for free. I might even pay money. That would be the coolest thing in the world, even if it cost my life, right? So perspective, one of the big things that Airpower brings. Also range, on the ground or even at sea, they can only move, you know, so fast, so far without getting behind their supply lines. And then once you do get too far, you know, if you look at the story of the Battle of the Bulge, our army units, you know, were kind of pressing forward. A counterattack encircled them. Very famous battle, man. Those guys and gals put up with some very, very harsh conditions. If you ever get a chance to visit Bastogne, I highly recommend it. But air power gives you an extended range where you can run in, do something. It can be drop people off. It can be take pictures. It can be drop bombs, and then get back to your supply lines. Anybody tell me what airplane is being refueled here?
A B2 Spirit.
Very good. Anybody tell me what aircraft is refueling it?
Sure, I'm going to guess KC-135.
Very well done. Yep. Could you tell that from the 128th Air Refueling Wing, Wisconsin Air National Guard, or you just recognize the boom on that thing?
I recognize the boom. My uncle flew this plane.
Nice. Okay. And fun fact, if I can see my cursor, on the KC-135, the boom is actually mechanical electrical. So it's activated by a motor up in the on the back of the aircraft. On a KC-10, these little wings that come out, they actually fly the boom around, which becomes very interesting when these guys get used to refueling F-16s and F-15s at 300, 350 knots, and they have to refuel a Hog at 200 knots. The aerodynamics are different, and they don't enjoy it. Good deal, bad deal. B-2s can take off out of Missouri, fly to Afghanistan, drop bombs, and fly back. That's a good deal because they can, basically there is no spot on the earth that we can't hold at risk for our adversaries. Bad news is that's a long time to be in a cramped little aircraft with 3 of your hopefully best buddies in the entire world. But again, that range is something that is very unique to air power. But again, you have to have air superiority, even if it's just localized, to be able to do it. Speed and responsiveness. Anybody tell me what aircraft we see here? Just shout it out.
Is that an F-22 Raptor, sir?
That is the F-22 Raptor. Very well done. This is a weird airplane. It does things that should be against the laws of physics. If you've ever seen the F-22 demo, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you need to get up to Langley to see it when they do it at practice on Friday. But again, the F-22, it has the ability to fly up into the bososphere above 50,000 feet, do a thing called super cruise. It eats up a lot of gas, but it can easily, go over Mach 1 and just haul the mail to get anywhere, anytime. Again, within gas, they do have slightly short legs, but not how fast they're going. But they can get there real quick to help influence the air. Does anybody know the mission of the F-22?
Air superiority.
Absolutely. Yeah, we call it defensive counter-air, offensive counter-air. These things can drop missiles. I'm sorry, shoot missiles. It does have a gun and can also drop bombs, but it's primarily trying to maintain control of the air, so it can attack ground targets. And it's also a low observable, so it can get into areas that some of your 4th gen and older airplanes cannot get into. And so again, the cool thing about, in addition to the B-2, our president, let's say hypothetically he's having a slight disagreement with, I don't know, the president of Russia, and they're not agreeing on how things should go in the world. Next thing you know, we park 12 of these bad Johnnies, I don't know, hypothetically somewhere in Eastern Europe. It's going to get his attention and hopefully give the other leader a chance. Hey, can we parlay? Can we talk? Because I don't want these things coming around and making my life miserable. So far, we've got perspective, we got range, we got speed and responsiveness. Thank you for no one making the A-10 joke, because everyone says, A-10s take bird strikes from behind. We can still be pretty fast in our own right, and when we get there, we're going to open a whole can of you-know-what. The other cool thing is maneuverability. Anybody tell me what aircraft this is?
F-16.
Thunderbird.
Is the F-16.
It is the F-16 Fighting Falcon, also known as the Viper. These in particular are the Thunderbirds. By the way, they will be at Shaw Air Force Base the first weekend of April. Captain Nason, did I get that correct? April, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. They'll be at April 3rd and 4th, and then the Blue Angels from the Navy will be at Charleston the following weekend.
That's right. Thank you very much. I knew there was a different one. So again, even if you can't volunteer, come out. I know they have the Thunderbirds. I think some of the other single ship demonstration teams will be there. But this aircraft
Flight will be there too.
Excellent. Oh, that's pretty cool. the sound of those piston motors. But the F-16, do y'all realize mathematically the F-16 cannot fly? It's like a bumblebee. Super unstable. So that's why it requires a computer. And if you ever watch them fly, all those flight controls kind of maneuver independently to make this thing fly. Very, very cool airplane. Not quite as cool as the A-10. We can agree to disagree. But as you can see, there's a really cool video from Desert Storm of an F-16 guy in combat. I think he got shot at by 6 or 7 SA-6 missiles, and he defeated every single one of them through a series of maneuvers and sounded cool on the radio throughout the whole thing, which is the most important. So again, maneuverability is something. There are ground maneuver units, boats and subs can do some stuff, but in the air, like Cadet Hopman said, we can use the 3 dimensions, and we have the ability to, once we were here, you blink, and then we're over there kind of making your life miserable, right? Mobility. This is an airplane giving birth to a M1 Abram. Anybody know what kind of airplane that is?
C5 Galaxy. Sir.
C5 Galaxy.
Anyone ever walked inside a C5 Galaxy?
Super Galaxy.
There you go. This thing should not be able to fly. Too stinking big. You can almost play 3. You could play 3-on-3 football inside of these darn things. Again, you're not moving too many of these M1 Abrams at the weight and scale they have on them, but the ability to drop, I guess you would need a couple of C5s, but you could move a couple of these bad Johnnies anywhere in the world in 24 hours, and now you've got a problem on a different flank, and that is one of the things that makes the U.S. military in the United States so unique. We call it global reach or rapid global mobility. It's very expensive. You can't do a whole lot of it. We actually prefer to move most of our stuff by rail or by boat if you need to do a lot of it, but it's going to take you months, whereas, again, this thing could get there easily within a couple of days. And this airlift isn't limited to lethal firepower. You can use it to move people, supplies. I know Captain Nason and I work in a personnel recovery branch, and anytime our helicopters or HA-60s go into theater, they fold them up and they have to put them on a C-17 or a C-5, and they can get them there within 3 to 4 days pretty easy. Anytime there is a natural disaster, whether it's an earthquake or a hurricane or something like that, you'll see American Airpower delivering just massive amounts of food, medical supply, water in some cases, especially with an earthquake, somewhere like in Haiti where fresh water is hard to come by. And then these aircraft also, if you absolutely want something destroyed overnight, you can put a company all the way up to a battalion of airborne troopers on an airfield, again, anywhere in the world in probably 24 hours or less. And then once you can seize the airfield, now you can set up the land bridge and do even more. So the enemy is constantly guessing. I'm trying to read the comments here. Somebody's making fun of me. Okay. So in addition to mobility, we also have a thing called flexibility and versatility. Can anybody tell me what kind of aircraft this is? And don't say Civil Air Patrol.
Cessna Caravan.
Close. It's actually not a Cessna. Not a Caravan. That's the C-206. Actually, Captain Roberts said this Friday night. It's the one they flew when they were doing the demo. But that was the 208. This is the other one. This is the
one they flew during the demonstration Friday night was the Cessna Caravan.
It was. This is a different one. This is so somebody said MD-8. Close. It's the GA-8. It's the Gippsland Airvan GA-8. It's like a pickup truck for airplanes. Can carry 8 people, or you can take the seats out and haul some heavy gear. I think Civil Air Patrol nationwide only has about 6 of these. But this airplane is an Air Force auxiliary. We can use it for air reconnaissance. They can do disaster relief. They can put a radio, a radio extender to extend the range of ground communications. You can use it to move physicians. I think Civil Air Patrol has actually been asked to move blood supplies and COVID vaccines and all kind of stuff. This aircraft is actually used quite a bit in the Australian outback to move doctors and medical supplies. But this is a great example of versatility and flexibility. So, a tank is pretty good for one thing, blowing stuff up, right? A submarine is good for one of two things. It can attack ships, or it can launch missiles that attack the land. But this aircraft can be used for just about anything. It's probably not going to be used for for bombing anymore because in 1945 the War Department said you guys did a great job. Stop acting like combatants when you're not. Yep, and definitely every single tropical storm, every hurricane response, every flood response, Civil Air Patrol has been heavily involved. And I know the state, you just talked to many of our pilots or operators, the state of South Carolina is intimately interested in having our pilots just provide situational awareness on roads, on flooding, and this also includes drones. But this aircraft can be used for a lot of things. Again, everyone sit up, think peaceful thoughts, benevolent search and rescue organization. That's us. This airplane with this paint scheme should be used for anything except killing people and breaking their stuff, right? So we talked about some of the characteristics of air power. Now let's talk about the celebrated examples of air power in action. Who do we like to talk about is like the father of the modern Air Force? Everyone should know this, who is a cadet officer or higher.
Mitchell.
Billy Mitchell, very good. All right. Who says they speak German kinda? Cadet Mercer. Are you one of the ones that claim to half sprechen Deutsch?
Yes, sir.
What was the name of the German battleship that Billy Mitchell sank to scare the crap out of everybody?
I know what it is, but I'm definitely
Say it.
not going to try
Say
to
it.
pronounce it.
Chicken!
I will
Chicken!
not.
Do it. Come on, take a swing. Never be afraid to fail.
I do not honestly know where to begin, so I'm not going to.
Anyone want to show Cadet Mercer how it's done?
Other than me?
I think it's
Other than you.
Ostfriesland. Ostfriesland.
Close. Say it, Doc.
Ostfriesland.
Ostfriesland.
There you go. What is it? It would literally translate. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's the name of the battleship.
Captain Nason, literally translated, what does Ostfriesland mean?
It is East Friesland, which is a state.
There you go. I caught the East. I didn't know what Friesland was.
Yeah,
If y'all
Friesland
recall,
is a state in Germany.
Gotcha. Okay.
Up in the North Sea.
And this was a ship that was captured in World War One. If you remember, there was a big debate going on. You know, air power was just starting to blossom. We still had the Army Air Corps at this time. There was a big fight for budgets after World War One, and of course the Navy was it's all about the battleship, and the Army was it's all about the tank. And Billy Mitchell, his means weren't the most respectful, but his passion definitely kind of got across. And he told the chairman of the Navy, I could sink a battleship in the air. And the guy's like, no, you couldn't. And let's be honest, I'm pretty sure Billy Mitchell, being one of the first airmen, did what all airmen will do in war, which is what, Captain Nason?
Basically goes, yeah, I'll show you.
A little bit of that, and also I wouldn't say he cheated, but he definitely set the test up in his favor. I mean, it was a stationary boat.
No, he did proper science theory application.
Definitely. But the key was they sank it. They hit it with a couple of bombs. They did level bombing, which is very difficult. But the key was when the Department of the Navy saw they were actually able to sink this boat, that's what got their attention. It also got Mitchell court-martialed and fired. But I'm very thankful that he was willing to risk his career and his credibility because the Air Force we have today, and the several air power theorists, Duhay is one of our favorite examples in military studies, they recognized the uniqueness of air power and how it could augment, but it really needed to be used separately. And again, we do like to talk about this guy as Daddy Mitchell. All right. Oh, I forgot to ask the question. All right. Can somebody in 30 seconds or less give me a quick rundown of the Doolittle raid? Who wants to do it?
Nathan Mercer has his hand up.
And go.
Alrighty, so the Americans were ticked that everyone ignored Billy Mitchell and the Japanese bombed us, so we said, let's get revenge and go bomb Japan. The end.
Pretty close. All right. What were some of the operational problems that Billy Mitchell had to overcome in order to his goal was to bomb mainland Japan, right? What was the problem? Did we have any aircraft or ships or subs that could reach mainland Japan?
They could reach it, but not return from it.
No, even from the coast of California, they could not reach it because remember, none of these aircraft are air refuelable. They didn't have the range. And by the way, what bomber is that flying off of the aircraft carrier, the Hornet?
The B-25,
sir.
Were B-25 medium bombers designed to operate off of carriers?
No, sir.
No. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead. Somebody said something. Okay. So what's interesting about this is Doolittle came up with this idea, and it pretty much was a suicide mission. Japan had total success at this point. They hadn't lost a battle in China. They hadn't lost a battle as they marched down the Marshall Islands. They had taken all the way up to India. So launching from the sea was part of it. But the bigger thing was how to navigate, how to get back. Because again, you wanted to have a survival option at least. What's interesting is he did not have any trouble getting any volunteers. Do you remember? Did this mission go according to plan, or did they have to launch early?
they had to launch early.
Why?
Launch early.
Because a Japanese scout ship spotted them.
Yeah, and they had like a picket line. So, and remember, Doolittle in the first airplane, these carriers, these little flat tops back then were super small. There was no storage underneath, so all these airplanes were tied down on the ramp, parked. I mean, literally, the propellers were running feet behind the runway in front of, or the wing in front of them. So he had maybe 2/3 of the deck remaining to get airborne, and there's no margin for error. Any engine loss, any mistake in getting too close to the stall warning, and if that airplane taking off, if it has a problem and crashes in the sea, there's no way that boat can turn or stop in time. They're going to get run over. And as y'all know, they were able to bomb mainland Japan. However, all of them either were shot down, ditched in the sea, bailed out, or crash landed in China. None of them were able to make it back. Many of them died or found themselves as Japanese prisoners of war. But this was tactically, very little damage. Didn't do much at all to hurt the Japanese war machine. Strategically, it was the first time the people of Japan who thought their emperor was a god went, oh crap, like we may not be as invincible as we thought we were. And on the Allied side, it was just a huge morale boost. You're in a boxing match with somebody and they're just pummeling you, and you land one punch, you land one uppercut, doesn't do a lot of damage, but now suddenly there's hope. So that's one of the big differences. And the Japanese definitely did not see it coming because we didn't possess the ability to range them, right? Moving on to the Cold War. Go ahead.
Sir, can I interject? One
Yeah,
thing?
go ahead.
I got to meet General Doolittle's co-pilot, and I was invited to a fly-in there at Columbia. The fly-in was unique, though. You could not drive there. You had to fly in literally. It was a grass strip in a pine forest, and there was a hangar built out there, and we flew in, and the strip grass strip was the same size as the carrier deck, and we landed our Cessna on the strip, and there were other planes there, and I got to actually meet him. He had on his bomber jacket. He got out of he was flying a Texan, and we had some barbecue and some beer over at the hangar, and then he threw down the gauntlet. He threw down a challenge, and they went out there and they spray painted the exact dimensions that they took off on, and he dared. And matter of fact, there was a bet. He put money down, and
don't touch the laundry, okay?
and
Sure.
and so they actually had a contest to fly off the strip, grass strip, same dimensions as they did there, and he's the only one in his Texan who was able to pull it off. He revved up his engines. He stood up on his brakes until tail dragger, and came off the ground, and then he took off and he did it, and it was amazing to watch.
Very cool. I see a question from Captain Nason. Anybody know how long that was? Go ahead, Captain Nason. I don't know this one. I know the second one, though.
600 feet.
Okay. So basically 2 football fields. And where did the Doolittle Raiders practice their bombing of their targets in Japan? I do know this one.
Lake Murray. Lake Murray.
There you go. Lake Murray in Columbia, South Carolina. And so if you
And
go
why
to some
was
of those,
Doolittle selected of all the lead air leaders and bomb leaders? Why was he selected over all of them? Because General Doolittle was an aerospace genius in simple terms, because he did a lot with navigation, racing before the war. So it wasn't just because he was a great leader, a charismatic leader, and a good bomber leader. He was an aeronautical engineer. He studied it. He's the one that developed instrument flight, and he demonstrated by basically getting in an airplane with no windows to show how to do instrument flying. So he was
Nice.
also an aeronautical engineer genius, and that's why he was selected to lead the raid. That's all I got.
And clearly willing to put money where his mouth is, not just then, but also later on when Chaplain Leonard met him. That's pretty cool. All right, moving on. So Cold War. If y'all remember, at the end of World War II, Germany was split up into a British, an American, Canadian, and a Russian section. Is that right, Doc? Had 4 sections.
Correct. It was actually Canadian, French, and then, of course, the Russian.
That's right, and the American. And so the Russian part became what was known as East Germany, and then Berlin was split into East and Western Berlin, with West kind of being in East Germany. Well, the Russians and East Germany decided to lock it down, and I think this was LeMay. They set up a really cool airlift bridge using C-47s, and the Berlin airlift brought in life-saving supplies, and it basically dared the Russians to shoot us down. And this guy, Gail Halverson, really cool, and just an example of how you can serve and lead from where you are. He knew the children of East Berlin were just suffering, and they weren't making any of these choices. So he decided to just get little pieces of chocolate, make little rudimentary parachutes, and on final, he would throw these things out the window. Now, I think today, if you did that, you'd probably get arrested for a dropped object or contributing to the delinquency of minors. But he became famous for it. Kids would get the little parachutes, they would get the chocolate. I know I heard a story. There was a Luxembourg guy that we met in our tour in Germany, and he remembers the first time an American gave him a Hershey bar. He had never had chocolate before, and he said it changed his life. So just getting a little piece of chocolate was a way to kind of ease the suffering. And I'm pretty sure this guy just passed away recently, but this is an example of just a little small thing. I'm sure it didn't cost him much, making little parachutes. There's actually a pretty cool AE hands-on thing you can do where you can make your own little candy parachutes, go out and throw them up, and see if you can drop them, get a little drift, and have them land back. And you get a sweet treat at the very end of it. All right. The Gulf War. Anybody tell me what aircraft is in the bottom center of the picture?
F-117 Nighthawk.
Nighthawk, you got it. Thank you. Okay. So the big takeaway here is, and there's a really cool book called Skunk Works, if you want to read the story about the F-117. We were convinced that radar was something you couldn't hide from, and a young mathematician, engineer from Lockheed Martin actually got his hand on a German mathematician's book, and that's what became the F-117. The hardest part wasn't making an aircraft that was low observable. The hard part was making the brick fly. But you'll see it used to take formations of hundreds of B-17 or B-24 or B-25 bombers just carpet bombing to hit one target, to now you have one aircraft that can drop 2,000-pound laser-guided bombs and shack their targets. So it's an example of you could be much more precise. You could minimize collateral damage. You could hit your target without putting so many men and machines at risk, and quite frankly, just be a lot more effective. This is one of the reasons why the war against Iraq only took 100 days plus 100 hours for a ground invasion. Again, I'm not saying air power can win the war, but it can sure make a big difference. And this was an example of, our doctrine kind of coming to work. And I'm getting sort of time, so I'm gonna keep going. So, what are some of the issues facing air power today and tomorrow? Popcorn them out. What do you got? And one of your examples is right there in the picture. Anybody tell me what that is?
It's a UAV.
What kind of UAV?
A predator.
Predator or a Reaper?
Predator?
Pretty sure that's a Reaper because it's got 4 stations. And the MQ-9 can actually carry, it's got the sensor ball in the front. It's a little bit bigger, still has a lawnmower engine in the back. Sounds like you're cutting grass when it comes into land. But it can carry a mix of 500-pound GPS guided bombs, laser guided bombs, as well as laser guided Hellfire missiles. So drones is a big one. We actually had some really good essays on that. Are there any other kind of issues facing air power today and tomorrow?
We have a pilot shortage.
We do have a pilot shortage. That's right.
Anti-air technology is getting more advanced.
Definitely, we have some incredible systems. Back in the day, your radar systems could only track and shoot one target. Nowadays, you have systems that can track a bunch and shoot more than one. Definitely. Okay. What else? So we kind of want to focus on UAVs and UASs, and for this one, we're talking about the bigger ones because the United States was one of the first to kind of weaponize, and it was meant to be ISR. You see right there, the big bomb on the inner pylon, that is a GBU-12 laser guided bomb, and then the one on the outside, that's a Hellfire, smaller. There's different versions. It's primarily an anti-armor missile. But we are not the only ones flying these. The Israelis make a really good UAV. Turkey makes a very good UAV that is actually being used to great effect in Ukraine right now. The Russians are using them. The Iranians use them probably more than anybody else. ISIS is using them. But a question for you, first and foremost, do UAVs make war more or less likely? What do y'all think?
You can make more
Why?
because you won't put humans in danger.
Yeah, so as a leader, I might be more likely to risk a strike because I'm not putting, if I lose a drone, who cares? I'll make more. Okay. Anybody else?
Probably more likely because there's not someone inside of it, so there's just lower stakes.
Okay.
And you can send out more, and you need less
you
people
bet.
to have the same kind of air power, or at least similar.
You bet. That's another good point. The people that are controlling this, where are they while this thing is flying over in Iraq and Syria and Ukraine? And I'm sorry, these are not flying in Ukraine, Poland and Romania. Where are the operators physically at while these things are flying?
Las Vegas.
Yep, they're stateside. They're also here at Shaw Air Force Base. They're at several guard bases around town, so they're here stateside. And this is one of the weird phenomena they're dealing with. When in the past, when military folks would deploy, they would go to the war zone, they would fight, they would see things, they would get stressed out, and they would have a couple of days to a couple of weeks on the way home to decompress, to talk about it, to deal with it. These guys see stuff through a very good camera and then go home and have dinner with their family. So that is one of the things they got to deal with. We could say UAVs are actually a step towards peace. It's a different type of air power, and it's not necessarily mutually assured destruction, but we can both see each other. It's much more difficult to sneak up and set up, for the sneak attack. Drones they should be a lot cheaper, easier to replace. And someone actually wrote in their AESA paper, drones, you don't have to put the weight of human life support in there. So some of the drones they're making can pull more Gs, they can fly higher, they can fly faster, they can definitely stay airborne longer because you're not worried about the pilot, falling asleep. If your pilot gets tired, all you do is high five like you're a WWE, tag team. Next person gets in, you fly the aircraft, and it's a team. One of the weaknesses, though, is it's still being remotely controlled through satellites. Nothing, like Texart Idol said yesterday, nothing is hack proof. So we got to make sure the enemies aren't able to to grab control of these and either spoof them down or use them against us, right? For the sake of time, I just want to real quick wrap this thing up. So Airpower has some very unique characteristics. It's strategic, it's offensive and defensive. It is a more humane option because we're hitting, if we're doing it right, we're hitting the military targets, not hitting everything. And I do agree that it needs to be an independent force. We've got a couple of minutes. I want to show one more thing real quick. Like, is there a hand up?
Yes, sir. I had my hand up.
Go for it.
Recently, I was asked to go out to McCreech Air Base, where they had the drones out there in Las Vegas. They have a call for chaplains out there for TDY because each drone pilot has access while they're on duty to a chaplain, a social worker, and a psychologist because of the stress that they face. They might have to pull a mission. And then, like you said, at 5 o'clock, they go home. Nobody lives on the base. There is no base housing. And so it's highly secure base. And so there's quite a bit of stress on them. And that's one of our concerns is for those drone pilots, and they all are certified pilots. You know, they're not just jockeys with sticks. They're actually certified pilots. Who've had what am I trying to say? Come in from the field from squadrons where they've actually flown missions, ground to air or air to air, and so so when they're flying those drones, they bring that experience with them.
Definitely. And I will take, I might disagree with one thing. Being a pilot and a stick operator or stick jockey, kind of tough to differentiate. It wouldn't be a Colonel Stanley lesson unless I showed something A10. So real quick, I'm going to show you a 30-second video of A10 strafe. What you're going to see here, if y'all can see my cursor, you're going to see a big round pipper. That's the gun sight. You'll see that's kind of moving around on the ground. Right in the middle here, you have the total velocity vector. That's where the airplane's going to crash if it does nothing. You'll see the angle bars. So right here, the level bars, that's the horizon, which is conveniently on the horizon. You guys not seeing my screen?
No.
Yes, sir. We can't see it.
All right, let me try it again. Let me try it again.
A10 crash, sir.
Hang on, let me try it one more time. Come on, don't do this to me.
Yeah.
All right, you got it?
Okay. I see something.
All right. Right here, the big round pipper. That's where you're going to be kind of watching. You hear the comm. This is what it sounds like when you're flying an A10 in combat. All right, ready? Here we go.
The volume.
We have no audio, Colonel Stanley.
Real quick, when you hear a steady tone and a chop tone, that's the stall warning. So when you hear a steady tone, that means I'm pulling, I'm hard maneuvering the aircraft, and if I get to the I'm about to stall. So a max turn in an A10, you want to hear that means I'm on the chop tone side of the steady tone. If you hang out in the chop tone, you could stall the engine. So here we go. Then high. Cleared high. There's a vehicle on the road that's done some badness, and yeah. I feel better.
Were you a hog pilot, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And actually, correction, I'm still a hog pilot. I'm just I'm inactive right now. Tell you what, time is 10:35. Let's take a 10-minute break. Bill, if you could drop the recording for a second.